President Trump just went on another late-night firing spree, but this time he is not stopping at TV hosts. From demanding Jimmy Kimmel's job to issuing veiled threats against sitting members of Congress, and then signing one of the most controversial bills tied to Jeffrey Epstein's legacy, the past 72 hours have been absolutely wild. And if you think you have seen Trump at his most unpredictable, buckle up, because what happened next will blow your mind. Before we dive into this chaos, if you want to stay updated on the latest political drama, breaking news, and everything happening in Washington, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Trust me, you are going to want to follow this story closely. Let me set the stage for you. Trump has a long history with late-night hosts, particularly Jimmy Kimmel. Their feud goes back years and has produced some of the most contentious exchanges between a president and a comedian in modern American history. But this is not just about hurt feelings or Twitter battles anymore. This is about a sitting president using the power of his office to demand that a major corporation fire someone for criticizing him. But then add in the fact that Trump also threatened specific members of Congress by name this week, warning them of consequences if they continue to oppose his agenda. We are talking about direct, personal threats against elected officials who are supposed to be part of a co-equal branch of government. That is constitutional crisis territory. And finally, in the midst of all this controversy, Trump signed the Jeffrey Epstein Transparency and Accountability Act, a bill that promises to reveal previously sealed documents about one of the most disturbing criminal cases in recent memory. The timing and optics of this signing have raised serious questions, especially given Trump's past social connections to Epstein. So let us break down exactly what happened, why it matters, and what this means for American politics moving forward. The feud between Donald Trump and Jimmy Kimmel just reached a boiling point again. Trump took to Truth Social this week with a series of posts demanding that ABC fire the late-night host immediately. His words were not subtle. Trump called Kimmel a talentless hack who has been disrespecting the office of the president for far too long. He posted that ABC and Disney should be ashamed for keeping someone on the air who spreads nothing but lies and hatred about him. In one particularly fiery post, Trump wrote that Kimmel is the worst late-night host in television history and that his ratings are terrible. He questioned why a major network would continue to employ someone who does nothing but attack the sitting president night after night. Trump also suggested that keeping Kimmel on the air might be politically motivated, hinting that Disney executives have their own agenda against his administration. The reaction was swift and predictable. Social media exploded with opinions from both sides. Trump supporters flooded the comments agreeing that Kimmel has crossed the line too many times. Meanwhile, Kimmel's defenders immediately cried foul, arguing that this is a direct attack on free speech and the First Amendment. Many pointed out that satire and political comedy have been protected forms of expression in America for decades. ABC and Disney have remained silent so far, issuing no official statement about Trump's demands. Industry insiders suggest the network will not cave to presidential pressure, but the situation puts them in an uncomfortable spotlight. Meanwhile, Kimmel addressed the controversy on his show the following night, turning Trump's attacks into more comedy material. This is far from the first time these two have clashed. The Trump-Kimmel feud goes back years, long before Trump's current presidency. During Trump's first term from 2017 to 2021, Kimmel was one of the most vocal critics in late-night television. His opening monologues frequently targeted Trump's policies, tweets, and behavior. Kimmel did not hold back, often using biting sarcasm and sharp commentary that resonated with audiences who opposed Trump. One of the most memorable moments came in 2018 when Kimmel read Trump's tweets verbatim in a segment that went viral. Trump fired back on Twitter at the time, calling Kimmel terrible and suggesting his show was dying. But the ratings told a different story. Kimmel's Trump-focused content often brought in higher viewership numbers. During the 2020 election cycle, tensions escalated even further. Kimmel openly campaigned against Trump's re-election, using his platform to encourage voter turnout. Trump responded by calling Kimmel a third-rate comedian and suggesting that late-night television had become nothing more than propaganda. He specifically called for Kimmel to be taken off the air at least twice during his first term, though nothing came of those demands. Kimmel is not alone in this category. Trump has had ongoing feuds with multiple late-night hosts. Stephen Colbert on CBS has been equally critical. Trump has called Colbert untalented and boring, though he has not demanded Colbert's firing as frequently. Jimmy Fallon on NBC took a different approach, generally staying more neutral, but Trump still criticized him. Seth Meyers has also been a frequent target of Trump's ire. What makes the Kimmel feud particularly intense is the personal nature of the attacks. Both men seem to take genuine offense at what the other says. This is not just political theater. There appears to be real animosity driving these exchanges. Kimmel has called Trump dangerous to democracy. Trump has called Kimmel a failure and a disgrace. So why does this latest call for firing matter more than the previous ones? Because Trump is now back in the White House with presidential power behind his words. When a sitting president publicly demands that a major corporation fire an employee, it carries weight that a private citizen's complaints do not. This raises serious First Amendment concerns about government pressure on media and entertainment companies. Legal experts have weighed in, noting that while Trump has the right to express his opinions, using the presidential platform to target specific individuals in the media creates a chilling effect. Other comedians and commentators may think twice before criticizing the president if they believe it could cost them their jobs. This is exactly the kind of self-censorship that the First Amendment is designed to prevent. ABC and Disney now face a difficult decision. If they fire Kimmel, they will be seen as caving to presidential pressure and abandoning free speech principles. If they keep him, they risk ongoing attacks from the president and potential regulatory scrutiny from his administration. If you are finding this breakdown valuable and want more in-depth political analysis like this, please take a second to subscribe to our channel. We are working hard to bring you unbiased, comprehensive coverage of the stories that actually matter. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss any updates on these developing stories. Now, let us talk about something even more concerning than a TV feud. What happened between Trump and Kimmel is troubling from a free speech perspective, but it pales in comparison to what comes next. We are about to shift from entertainment controversy into genuine constitutional crisis territory. Because while demanding a comedian be fired is problematic, threatening elected members of Congress is on an entirely different level. This is where things get serious. We are talking about the President of the United States directing threats at the legislative branch of government. This strikes at the very heart of our system of checks and balances. When the executive branch begins intimidating lawmakers, we are entering dangerous ground that our founders specifically designed the Constitution to prevent. The statements Trump made about members of Congress this week have sent shockwaves through Washington. During a rally in Florida, Trump singled out several lawmakers by name, warning them that they would face consequences if they continued to oppose his agenda. He specifically mentioned 3 Democratic representatives and 2 Republican senators who have been critical of his policies. Trump told the crowd that these politicians are enemies of the people and that they will pay a price for their betrayal. On Truth Social, Trump went even further. He posted that certain members of Congress should be very careful about how they vote on upcoming legislation. He wrote that he has ways of making sure disloyal politicians regret their decisions. But the most concerning language came when he wrote that some members of Congress might need to be dealt with in ways beyond just elections. The targets were quick to identify themselves. Representative Adam Schiff from California was mentioned by name during the rally. Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, a Republican who has occasionally broken with Trump, was also called out directly. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York received multiple threatening posts on Truth Social. Senator Mitt Romney from Utah was told he should watch his back. And Representative Jamie Raskin from Maryland was warned about consequences coming his way. The tone of these statements was dark and ominous. Trump did not use vague political language. He was specific, personal, and threatening. Legal analysts who reviewed the statements noted that while some could be interpreted as standard political hardball, others crossed into territory that could be considered intimidation. The phrase about dealing with lawmakers in ways beyond elections particularly raised red flags. This situation raises profound constitutional concerns about the separation of powers. The United States government was designed with 3 co-equal branches specifically to prevent any one person or institution from accumulating too much power. When a president uses the power and platform of his office to intimidate legislators, the entire system of checks and balances is undermined. Has this happened before in American history? The short answer is yes, but rarely this openly. President Richard Nixon famously kept an enemies list that included members of Congress, and he used government agencies to harass his political opponents. That abuse of power was part of what led to his downfall during Watergate. Most modern presidents have understood that openly threatening Congress crosses a fundamental line. Legal experts are divided on whether Trump's statements actually violate any laws. Some argue that while the statements are inappropriate and dangerous, they fall short of meeting the legal definition of threats. Others contend that when a president tells lawmakers they will be dealt with or face consequences, that constitutes intimidation of federal officials, which is a crime. The distinction between political pressure and actual threats is important here. Presidents have always tried to influence Congress through various means. That is normal politics. But there is a line between persuasion and intimidation. When a president suggests that lawmakers might face harm or unspecified consequences for doing their jobs, that crosses from politics into something much darker. What makes this especially serious is that Trump is threatening a co-equal branch of government. Congress does not work for the president. Lawmakers are elected by their constituents to represent their districts and states. When the executive branch attempts to intimidate the legislative branch, the fundamental architecture of American democracy is at risk. The response from Congress has been swift but divided along partisan lines. The Democratic members who were targeted issued strong statements condemning Trump's language. Representative Schiff called the threats an assault on democracy. Representative Ocasio-Cortez held a press conference warning that Trump's rhetoric could incite violence against lawmakers. Senator Murkowski released a measured statement saying she would not be intimidated. Republican reactions have been much more muted. Most GOP members of Congress have either stayed silent or downplayed the significance of Trump's statements. A few have offered weak defenses, suggesting that Trump was just being Trump and that people should not take his words so literally. Only a handful of Republicans have spoken out. Senator Romney condemned the threats as unacceptable. Behind the scenes, the Capitol Police have reportedly conducted security assessments for the threatened lawmakers. Sources indicate that threat levels against certain members of Congress have increased following Trump's statements. The Sergeant-at-Arms office has been in communication with the targeted members about additional security measures. The broader implications of this situation extend far beyond the immediate targets. Every member of Congress is now watching to see what happens. If Trump can threaten lawmakers without consequence, what message does that send? The impact on legislative independence could be enormous. Lawmakers might think twice before voting against Trump's priorities, not because they agree with him, but because they fear retaliation. Now we need to talk about the Epstein bill, which Trump signed into law this week amid considerable controversy. The official name of this legislation is the Jeffrey Epstein Transparency and Accountability Act, designated as House Resolution 2547. This bill has been years in the making, and its signing represents a significant moment in the ongoing fallout from one of the most disturbing criminal cases in recent American history. The core purpose of this legislation is to increase transparency around the Jeffrey Epstein case and to provide better protections for victims of sex trafficking. The bill mandates the release of previously sealed documents related to Epstein's criminal activities and his associates. It also establishes new reporting requirements for federal agencies that had any contact with Epstein or his operations. The bill was introduced by Representative Maria Salazar, a Republican from Florida, and co-sponsored by Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a Democrat also from Florida. The bipartisan nature of the bill from the start was notable. The bill passed the House with a vote of 387 to 43, showing overwhelming bipartisan support. In the Senate, it passed 78 to 22. What problem is this bill designed to solve? For years, victims of Epstein and his trafficking network have complained that powerful people have been protected by secrecy. Court documents have been sealed, witness lists have been kept confidential, and federal agencies have been reluctant to disclose their interactions with Epstein. This lack of transparency has fueled conspiracy theories and prevented full accountability. The connection to the broader Jeffrey Epstein case is direct. Epstein was a financier who was convicted of sex trafficking minors in 2008, receiving what many considered a shockingly lenient sentence. He was arrested again in 2019 on federal charges but died by suicide in his jail cell before facing trial. His associate Ghislaine Maxwell was later convicted and sentenced to prison for her role in the trafficking operation. But the full extent of Epstein's network has never been fully revealed. This bill is designed to finally provide those answers. So why is Trump signing this particular bill controversial? The answer lies in his documented past associations with Jeffrey Epstein. Trump and Epstein were social acquaintances in the 1990s and early 2000s. They were both members of the Palm Beach social scene. There are photographs of them together at parties. Trump was quoted in a 2002 magazine article calling Epstein a terrific guy. Trump has since distanced himself from Epstein, claiming they had a falling out years before Epstein's crimes became public. Trump has stated that he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago, his Florida resort. Trump has also said he was not close with Epstein and that their relationship was exaggerated. No charges or allegations of wrongdoing have been brought against Trump in connection with Epstein's trafficking operation. The political optics of Trump signing this bill are complex. On one hand, signing legislation that increases transparency and helps victims appears to be the right thing to do. On the other hand, given Trump's past social connection to Epstein, some critics view the signing with skepticism. The timing of the signing has raised eyebrows. Why sign this bill now, and why do it with relatively little fanfare? Some political analysts suggest that Trump wanted to get ahead of potential criticism by signing the bill quickly and quietly. The bill was signed in a closed ceremony with limited press access, which is unusual for legislation with this level of public interest. So what does this bill actually do in practical terms? First, it requires the Department of Justice to release all non-classified documents related to the Epstein investigation within 180 days. This includes FBI files, investigative reports, and witness statements. Second, it requires all federal agencies to produce reports detailing any contact with Epstein from 1990 until his death. Third, the bill creates a compensation fund for victims who can demonstrate they were harmed by Epstein or his network. This fund is capitalized with $200 million seized from Epstein's estate. Fourth, the bill establishes new federal criminal statutes related to sex trafficking, closing loopholes that may have allowed some of Epstein's conduct to go unpunished. The bill also affects institutions. Any university, foundation, or organization that received funding from Epstein must disclose the amounts and purposes of that funding. For law enforcement, the bill mandates new training programs focused on identifying and investigating sex trafficking. Reactions to the bill signing have been mixed but generally positive. Victim advocacy groups have largely praised the legislation. Attorneys representing Epstein victims have expressed cautious optimism. Bipartisan political reactions have been supportive, though Democratic leaders have noted that Trump's signature does not erase questions about his past associations. Legal experts agree that the bill is well crafted and should withstand any legal challenges. Media coverage has been extensive but fragmented. Some outlets have focused on the bill's merits and what it means for victims. Others have centered their coverage on Trump's Epstein connections and the political implications. Critics of the bill argue it does not go far enough. Some want criminal investigations reopened against anyone who had contact with Epstein. Supporters counter that this bill represents the most comprehensive response to the Epstein case that was politically achievable. When you step back and look at these three stories together, a clear pattern emerges. Trump demanding that Jimmy Kimmel be fired, threatening members of Congress, and signing the Epstein bill all happened within the same week. These actions reveal a consistent approach to power, criticism, and public perception that defines Trump's political style. Let us start with Trump's relationship with media criticism. He has never been able to simply ignore his critics or let attacks roll off his back. Trump feels compelled to respond and escalate. A joke becomes a call for someone to be fired. A critical article becomes a declaration that the media is the enemy of the people. His approach to political opposition follows the same playbook. Trump does not accept opposition as a normal part of democracy. Instead, he views it as betrayal that must be punished. Lawmakers who vote against his priorities are not simply doing their jobs. In Trump's view, they are disloyal or corrupt. Image management through controversial actions is another key part of the pattern. When negative stories emerge about Trump, he often creates new controversies to change the narrative. The Epstein bill signing is a perfect example. By signing legislation related to Epstein, Trump can claim he is fighting sex trafficking and supporting victims. What do these patterns tell us about Trump in his second term? There are notable differences between the Trump of 2017 to 2021 and the Trump we are seeing now. First-term Trump was somewhat constrained by advisors and Republican establishment figures. Second-term Trump appears to have no such hesitations. The 2024 election victory has clearly emboldened him. Winning after everything that happened seems to have convinced Trump that he is politically invincible. He campaigned openly on promises of retribution. Voters chose him anyway. In Trump's mind, this gives him a mandate to do whatever he wants without worrying about traditional norms. Did Trump learn any lessons from his first term? The answer appears to be yes, but not the lessons his critics hoped he would learn. He learned that bold action energizes his base even when it outrages his opponents. He learned that many Republicans in Congress will ultimately fall in line. These are the lessons that seem to be guiding his second-term strategy. But what about the bigger picture beyond Trump himself? The impact on American political culture is already profound and likely to be lasting. When a president can openly threaten lawmakers, attack journalists, and face no meaningful consequences, it changes what is considered acceptable behavior. The normalization of certain behaviors is perhaps the most troubling long-term effect. What once would have been considered shocking or disqualifying is now treated as just another day in politics. Presidential threats against Congress would have dominated news cycles for weeks in previous eras. How other politicians may follow suit is already becoming visible. Governors, senators, and representatives are adopting Trump-style tactics in their own contexts. Attacking the media, threatening political opponents, and refusing to accept normal democratic constraints are becoming more common. The long-term implications for democracy are difficult to predict but genuinely concerning. Democratic systems depend on shared norms, mutual respect between institutions, and a basic commitment to the rule of law. When those foundations erode, the system becomes vulnerable. Whether the system can withstand these pressures remains an open question. So let us quickly recap what we have covered. We started with Trump's latest demand that ABC fire Jimmy Kimmel, which raises serious First Amendment concerns. Then we examined Trump's threats against specific members of Congress, which strike at the heart of our constitutional system. Finally, we looked at the signing of the Epstein Transparency and Accountability Act, which comes with complicated optics given Trump's past connections. Each of these stories is significant on its own. But together, they paint a picture of a president operating without traditional constraints, testing the limits of his power, and forcing America to confront difficult questions about democracy and accountability. What should we be watching for next? On the Kimmel front, the question is whether ABC and Disney will respond to Trump's demands. For the congressional threats, we need to watch whether any formal actions are taken. And with the Epstein bill, the real test comes in the implementation. Will the documents actually be released as promised? The predicted fallout from each controversy is already beginning to take shape. The Kimmel situation will likely fuel ongoing debates about free speech. The congressional threats may lead to increased security concerns for lawmakers. The Epstein bill fallout will depend entirely on what the released documents contain. Here is what I think from a balanced perspective. Regardless of whether you support Trump or oppose him, these stories should concern you. Presidential pressure on media outlets threatens the free press that democracy depends on. Threats against lawmakers undermine the separation of powers. And the handling of the Epstein case affects real victims who deserve justice. Why should you care regardless of your political affiliation? Because the precedents being set right now will outlast any single presidency. If we normalize presidential threats against Congress, future presidents of both parties will feel empowered to do the same. The stakes are higher than one person or one administration. This is a call to civic engagement and staying informed. Democracy requires active participation from citizens. That means paying attention to what your government is doing, holding elected officials accountable, and demanding transparency. These stories are developing by the hour, and there is so much more to uncover. If you want to stay ahead of the news cycle and get deeper analysis than what you will find in mainstream headlines, make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on these developments. Do you think Trump has gone too far, or is this just politics as usual? Do you believe the Epstein bill will actually deliver transparency? What should ABC do about the Kimmel situation? Let us have a respectful conversation in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Stay informed, stay engaged, and do not let anyone tell you that paying attention to politics does not matter. It matters more than ever.